So one of the things that I've experienced around the world in this job is the following. The leaders of the country say, I want an innovative ecosystem. I want entrepreneurship. But then their laws don't support it. Their judicial system doesn't support it. Their culture doesn't support it. And that the access to capital is limited to the few who already have access to capital. And so one of the biggest challenges we face at the Department of Commerce in doing our job is where to begin, how to help these countries who say this is what's important to them, but the task is monumental. And so what kind of advice do you have, Tony, for us to really help? You see governments all over Africa that say this. I see it all over the world, and it's a real challenge.
I think first is governments have certain priorities and objectives. And one of these objectives is they want to create jobs. They want to improve the standard of living of their people. But I think they've always looked at it from one perspective, especially in my part of the world. And that's the perspective of government must directly be involved in doing those things. But if we look at it that the other side of government intervention in providing some of these issues like job creation and creating the right environment for citizens to do well is economic opportunity. Then if government begin to see economic opportunity as a means to an end being job creation and making life easy, then they would sit up and help create the enabling environment that will make private sector entrepreneurs, etc., to create these jobs for government. So I think we need to first establish and let people and government leaders in particular know the nexus, the relationship between providing the right economic environment and policies and ability to achieve those objectives that they seek to achieve. If they are able to establish the linkage, then to be easy. Second thing is, like what President Obama is doing now, when it comes to Africa, for instance, he should engage with the private sector, he should also engage with the government political leaders. And the engagement should be to help create awareness further about the need to create an enabling environment. Let's look at power sector, for instance. Access to electricity is very poor in Africa. But then some African countries, to get the requisite government authorization to develop power might take 10 years. And so at times you wonder if people do really understand that improving the efficiency of the process of getting the authorization can help to improve access to electricity. And if you have access to electricity improved, then can help to create jobs, can help to make standard of living very good for people. I think the key thing we all have to do, the private sector operating in some parts of the world, especially like Africa, the foreign government like American government, like your Commerce Department, and like the development partners, let's work together to create the awareness for people to know that there's a relationship between creating the right environment and success. Success defined in terms of economic opportunities, in terms of job creation, in terms of better standard of living for our people.
Tony, let me ask you a question. The president talks, is very excited about he's going to go to Kenya for the 6th annual Global Entrepreneurship Summit. What's success at that summit? You've seen the other summits. You're familiar with what's going on. When you look at it and say, what have we learned? How are we going to make this really, special?
I think first in the world today, and especially in the on the African continent, people focus. I think the world is more interested, or focus a lot more on saving lives than paying adequate attention to economic opportunities. Listening to President Obama and what he said about economic opportunities and how the lack of it can create a lot of problems in the world. What I'd like to see out of this conference in Africa would be 3 things. First is let's heighten, let the world know, just as the president said last time he came to Africa, I said about trade and investment. Africa There are a lot of opportunities in Africa. Let's talk about trade and investment than talking about just how to save lives. How to save lives is very important, but if we pursue economic opportunities, then people from even within the continent, on the continent, can save lives on their own. So let's elevate this consciousness that economic opportunity is key to developing Africa in the 21st century. Second thing is for the deep pocket investors, and I'm sitting with some here, let them come and partner with some of us who already are providing long-term capital, seed capital to the aspiring African entrepreneurs. The fact that American president is coming to Africa should heighten that interest. So I like entrepreneurs on the continent to have more people, more investors ready to fund the initiatives. Especially for us at the Tony Elumelu Foundation and what we're doing with the entrepreneurship program, we're de-risking a lot of investment opportunities. Through the program, we identify 1,000 every year, 1,000 aspiring entrepreneurs, and we provide seed capital to them, mentorship, training, and networking facilities. So you should find some of this to invest in so that they can move to the next stage. The third one is related to the second question you asked. This visit should engage African political leaders for us to take seriously the issues that affect the success of entrepreneurs. It's stated that in Africa, about 95% of entrepreneurs die, in a year, within the first year. So we need to address this by making sure what are those reasons why they die. It goes beyond capital also. So let's make sure that the enabling environment is created. So the visit should help to achieve that. I think that if we preach economic opportunity, if we have access to capital and other things that make the ecosystem work, such as mentorship, training, and if we have the government provide the enabling environment, entrepreneurship would thrive in Africa, and as entrepreneurs prosper in Africa, they will address most of our development needs and challenges today.
Terrific, terrific. I'm going to open it up for a minute and see if there are any questions from our audience. Yes, sir. We don't have a microphone, so just speak loudly.
My name is Alex Shore. I've been working on clean energy projects in China for the last 4 years, and I guess, Tony, this question could be directed to you, but Secretary Pritzker maybe as well as to address it. But how do you get investors to be comfortable in a developing market when the infrastructure and the government, it may not be as supportive, or and contracts aren't really a contract? What are some ways that can be done, maybe from the ground, from the bottom up, that can make that more attractive?
I think a couple of ways. But first is how about identifying local investors who already understand the risk and have the appetite for such risk, and who know how to deal with the institutional rigidity that you've just painted. If you identify this and co-invest with them, that can be a way out. Africa today, for instance, some of the issues you talked about are changing because we have local African investors who are insisting and putting pressure on local governments to make sure that there's rule of law, that the macroeconomic environment is stable, and that some other soft policies that could enable capital to come to Africa are provided. We have cases of countries, Rwanda, this is happening already, and a number of other countries across the continent. So identify local investors and take it from there. So I'm in your school. I believe in what you're saying. We need to move the world's attention. For me, we need to save lives, but there are more permanent ways of dealing with issues that you don't even need to intervene to save lives. That lives could be saved from within, in the case of Africa, for instance. There is a lot of development money in Africa, but not channeled in helping to support economic opportunities. And that is why, so for me, a couple of things we need to do. We need to keep talking so that the mindset changes, and that's why this kind of platform is very important. I'm talking with two here. Two is we need to also find successful African business leaders to lead the way. That I committed $100 million towards supporting entrepreneurs on the continent is not because I'm the richest African, but because I'm an entrepreneur. I've seen what entrepreneurs suffer. I've also seen what entrepreneurship can do to address our problems on the continent. I believe that by doing so, we help others. And so for me, it's a signaling. Hopefully, other successful Africans will also come in and start doing the same thing. And by the time we produce hundreds of jobs out of such initiatives, 100 begins, then more others will come into that space.
One sentence. What would your advice be to entrepreneurs and startups listening to you today? Real quick. One sentence. Go ahead, Tony. We'll go right down.
So entrepreneurs who are listening, quick one, short one, straight to the point. Entrepreneurship is a long-term journey. Stop seeing it as a short-term goal. Long-term journey. Great companies, great and accomplished entrepreneurs did not make it in 1 year. They didn't make it in 3 years. It's a long-term journey. So move in, dare to dream, implement your dream, and stay focused.